Welcome to Playing Above the Line, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and community activists to get their thoughts and perspectives on leadership. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. Welcome to Playing Above the Line. I'm Alan, your host, and I'll tell you what, we have an interesting episode for you today. For the past 120-something episodes, we've talked to typically leaders and entrepreneurs who are established in their respective fields, whether it be their community or their business or their organizations. But what we haven't done so much of is talk to our emerging leaders. And so Carrie and I thought it would be interesting and fun to get the perspective of some of our leaders that will be coming up behind us. And I can tell you this, the three guests today are my favorite guests that we've ever had, because two of them are my children, and then the other one might as well be my child. And so I'm happy to have them. Our guests today are Garrett and Abigail Cave, my children, and then Myra Reese. And so, guys, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Very good. All right. I want to talk about a few different things. Let's start with Garrett and then Myra and Abigail. I want you to tell me what you're in school, what you're studying, and then what you plan on doing when you graduate from college. So, Garrett, go ahead.
I am at Auburn University. I just finished my junior year. I am majoring in English language arts education. And after I graduate, I plan on going into the high school English classroom and being a teacher for a little while. But eventually, I'm going to go back to school and get my master's. I'm not exactly sure what yet, but that is my plan at this point.
Okay, great. Myra, what about you?
I am a junior like Garrett, going to be a senior in the fall, and I'm an accounting major. And after graduation, I plan to get my master's of accounting degree to obtain my 150 hours to sit for the CPA exam and then work full-time, hopefully, at a firm in Birmingham.
Great. All right, Abigail.
I just finished up my freshman year. I'm majoring in exercise science. After Auburn, I plan to go to UAB and go to PT school to become a physical therapist.
Very, very good. All right. I want to start with COVID, because COVID is still kind of a thing. Cases are declining and whatnot here recently, but all of you guys had to go to school and deal with being students at a large university during COVID. And that meant that you had to wear masks. Most of your classes were virtual. So I want to talk about this from a leadership perspective. Number one, how do you think the university handled it? Do you think it was handled well? And then what about your professors? I know that some probably adapted better than others. So just from that standpoint and look at it through that lens, tell me a little bit about the experience of being a college student during COVID, and I'll let whoever wants to start take that.
At the university level, I think the leadership and the administration did do a pretty good job of handling the situation. Our president, Dr. Gouge, did a really good job of keeping everybody in the loop with emails and announcements and things like that. The provost, Dr. Hargrave, he was really determined to get us more back to normal this semester as opposed to last semester, which was completely online. So that was one of his goals, was to have, I think, 70% back in person this semester. And then Dr. Cam is the director of the med clinic at Auburn, and he has just been working really hard to implement testing and make sure that everybody's accommodated for. So I think that at the university level, they've done a really good job, both of handling it and telling us as students what we need to know. Mm-hmm. And then I had some professors go back to in-person this semester. I had some that chose to stay online, and I really did appreciate the ones that wanted to go back in person. They were really enthusiastic about trying to get things back to normal for their students as well, because they could kind of see how a sudden shift to online had impacted the students and the quality of work had gone down. Just the motivation was kind of hard, I guess, doing everything from your bedroom at home. Yeah. So the professors that did want to come back to campus were really excited about that. And that was something that I appreciated.
Yeah, great. Well, girls, let me ask you this, and from a little bit different perspective, because both of you are in sororities. And so from a social perspective, I know that recruitment looked a lot different this past year. So talk about how that maybe changed, and was it harder to try to go through that process being, I know that a lot of that was online and you didn't have in-person meetings. So what did it look like from a social standpoint on campus as far as trying to navigate those waters with all the restrictions that were in place?
Well, last semester, it was really all online. Chapter meetings were on Zoom. And then the whole thing with recruitment, with being in August, all of our recruitment was virtual. I was on the other side of it. So I was recruiting girls. Abigail was going through the process, so she might have a little bit of different perspective. I think it went well as it could have gone, since no one has ever known how to handle a pandemic before, like the one that we are in. I think everyone did the best that they could. And regarding like social events, formal socials, date parties, stuff like that, we really didn't have any last semester. But this semester we started to be able to do half capacity with half of the girls. So we do like a pledge class each night of the week, could have their formal social, whatever it may be. And then we got to probably in about March, April, we got to do where the whole sorority could be together again with masks and precautions and all of that.
Well, good.
Going through recruitment on the P&M side was a little bit more difficult because usually whenever you go through Rush, you get to go to each chapter and really see what it's about to get a feel for each chapter. But doing it on Zoom, you really just had to base your opinion off of a few conversations that you had. So that was kind of difficult, but I think most people were able to work with what we had and we were able to end up where we were supposed to be. And then the social part, the first semester, we did pretty much nothing. And then this semester, as Garrett said, with Dr. Cam in the med clinic, they've been able to use the numbers. They get back from sentinel testing. So it's gone from like 50 capacity up to 100 because of those declining numbers. So this semester has been a lot better social wise.
Well, Garrett and Myra obviously were in their third year at Auburn, and so they had already established some relationships and whatnot. They've been up there for a couple of years, but going in as a freshman with all of the restrictions in place, I know, but was it difficult to make those connections because you weren't going to class in person? You weren't being able to get together with all, other 220 of your sorority sisters? Was it more difficult to try to find your place up there, do you think, during the pandemic?
I would say in some ways more than others. For the sorority, my first semester, I really only knew people in my pledge class. I didn't know anybody in the grades above me, but that allowed us to become a lot closer as a pledge class. We were able to use lots of things like social media and group meets and just meeting outside of sorority terms to get to know each other better. So I've made a lot of good friends in my pledge class. In classes over Zoom, it is a bit more difficult to make those friendships and connections, but going back in person, I definitely was able this semester to meet a lot more people in my classes. So that was good.
Yeah, that's great. All right. So now look, I will say this for everyone listening out there. I can assure you that none of these three have ever listened to an episode of Playing Above the Line, but I can promise you that they better listen to this one. And so that was part of the motivation for having them on. So they would at least go to Apple, iTunes, or Spotify and at least, hit the old like button on this one episode. But had you listened to another one of the episodes, you would know that I ask this question of our guests typically: what do you think makes a good leader? And so, Garrett, I want to start with you. And I think it's an interesting perspective because you guys haven't necessarily dealt with a lot of people in the business world, but you have dealt with your high school teachers, you've dealt with coaches, you've dealt with college professors and different organizations on campus and whatnot. So when I say, tell me what makes a good leader or give me some qualities that you think a good leader should have, what are some things that come to your mind?
For me, all of the people that I can think of off the top of my head that I think are the best leaders that I've been around in the last few years, the main thing that they did really well was just communication. I think that's one of the most important leadership qualities. Like the professors that I felt tried really hard to communicate with me in their classes and kind of build that relationship and earn the respect rather than just assuming that you have to respect them because they're a professor. But that mutual respect and open communication was a way that they showed their leadership to me. So communication is probably what I would say.
Mm-hmm. All right, Myra, if you have an answer ready to.
I would say some of the best leaders that I've came across are the ones that push each individual to be the best that they can be. Knowing that everyone just has different strengths and weaknesses is really important for me. And I applaud a leader that can point out somebody's strengths and let them roll with that and keep them on the right track, but not push everybody to do the same thing when not everybody has the same strengths and weaknesses.
I gotcha. Okay, that's good. Abigail, you got anything for me?
All of the good leaders that I've been in contact with usually are the ones that work to form relationships with the people that are under them, because like Garrett said, lots of people that aren't good leaders, they'll kind of just assume that they'll have your respect and not really work towards that and make that connection with you. So whenever they do have those lines of communication open and they allow themselves to get to know you in the way that you need to be led.
Yeah, well, that's great. And I will say that we talk a lot about relationships, and we have the past 2.5 years. And I think that's a very big important part. And it sounds like from everything you guys have said, you agree, and you might not have used those words, but I mean, that's what I'm gathering from you. Abigail, I know that you were a high school leadership education council leader. Is that, counselor? Am I saying that right? What did you do?
High school leadership conference.
Okay. You were a high school leadership conference counselor for high school students that come through that program in Auburn this past spring. So what made you, and I will say that, the communication being what it is between us, you just called your mom and I one day and you said, hey, I got chosen for this program. We didn't even know you'd applied. And so we thought that was great that you took that initiative. What made you want to take part in that? Why did you think it was important to participate in that program as a counselor?
To be honest with you, whenever I signed up for it, I was just scrolling through the AU Involve and I saw it and I said, oh, that looks interesting. I'll just sign up. And then I got chosen to do an interview. And then I realized, okay, I probably need to look into what this is. So I started looking at their social media pages and just seeing what it was about. And it's a one-day conference where high school students come to Auburn. This year it was on Zoom because of COVID, but it was still the same concept. They come to Auburn and they hear from lots of speakers. We heard from one of the first Friends of Albee. We heard from the athletic director, Alan Green, and just got to hear their experiences in leadership. And we were able to go ahead and make connections with those students, some that are coming to Auburn and some that aren't, but just showing them how important it is to take leadership roles whenever you have the chance and how to get involved.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I will say that the competition at Auburn for these positions is very high. And so I know that you did that. I was proud of that. And Garrett, you're going to be a War Eagle counselor this summer for the incoming freshmen. So tell me about that. Why did you think it was important to spend, and you're going to spend your entire summer living in a dorm in Auburn, taking incoming freshmen and their parents on tours and making sure they know all the things they need to know about Auburn. So why did you think it was important to give back in that way?
I have always loved the tradition and the history of Auburn, and I really enjoy just kind of learning about the way that the university operates. It's just something that I've become really interested in since I've been attending the last few years. And it's going to be people from all over the place. There's people that have been coming to Auburn for football games all their lives, or their parents went there, or it'll be people who have never even been to the state of Alabama and they're coming down here for the first time. So it's really just kind of bringing all these different people together and building a connection between them and between myself and them based on the university that we're all going to be at together. And it's just really exciting to me. And I am really looking forward to starting that in a couple of weeks.
That's good. All right, let me give you a little test, because I know not only will you spend the entire summer being a counselor, but you've spent the entire semester in meetings and having tests and learning all the facts that, that any fact anyone might want to know about Auburn, you've learned. So let's see here. How many books are there in RBD? Or RDB?
There are 3.2 million books in Ralph Brown Draughton Library. It's RBD.
Okay.
Yep.
RBD. Yeah, I got my initials confused. All right. And what was the 1 millionth book in the library?
The 1 millionth copy that the library received was a copy of the Great Bible that was printed in 1566. It is the first complete translation of the Old and New Testament all in one single book, and they had that presented to them in 1979.
Very good. See, this is educational. You learn something, guys. All right, Myra, let me ask you this. Now, you're an accounting major. Entering your senior year, a year from, well, I guess a little less than a year from now, you will enter your internship where you will intern at a business for your spring semester. So I know you've gone through that interview process and you talked to a lot of firms. So, and I'm not asking you to tell me where you're going or name names or anything like that, but I am interested in what you look for in a prospective employer. As an employer of a lot of millennials, not just this firm, but the accounting profession in general, we're always trying to figure out, what you guys are looking for and what you think is important. And I guess you're not millennials, are you? What are you, Gen Zers?
Gen Z.
Okay, Gen Zers. All right. So even more a mystery to crack are the Gen Zers. So what do you think is important when you're looking for an employer? What things are at the top of your list as far as, all right, they check this box, I think I can work here. What's important to you?
I would say the most important thing about a firm to me is the environment and the people in general. All of the firms that I've talked to throughout my time at Auburn, the recruiting process, they've all had an environment and aspect about them that makes them really stand out to me. Every person that I've talked to, well, the interviewers that I had that interviewed me for my internships, they had known me since August of last year. And we've kept in contact, and they really just have proven that they want to know me and the person that I am. When we interviewed, we had talked so much that they didn't really ask me any questions. They've known me and we've talked so much that they just asked me how my parents were, how my family is, how school go, and things like that. And you spend so many hours a week working with these people. So it's just for me, I really like the fact that I can talk to them and know that they really care about the person that I am and not just the employee that I will be.
Yeah, that's great. And notice, people, that she didn't mention the word compensation one time, although it's a consideration and it's on the list. But I think that, again, gets back to the relationship and the things that are most important to this next generation coming up. And it's not necessarily the dollars, and it's not, how many free meals they get and all those things that we as employers typically think maybe are important, which they are, on some level, but they're not the most important things. I appreciate that insight from you. Let's talk about mentors. And again, had you listened to any of my episodes, you would know that we always talk about mentors and influences and whatnot. I'm a big believer that everyone has those. I think that everyone should have a mentor, whether it's a formal relationship or not, but everyone should have someone or a few someones that they look up to and they can go to for advice. So I'm going to ask each of you this question. And I know that you haven't necessarily been in the working world, but I do believe that you probably had educators and different people that have crossed your paths in your lives that have influenced you. So Abigail, give me a name or two of someone who has influenced you in your journey so far, and why have they been an influence?
The first one that I would say is not a formal relationship at all. It's my good friend, Brianne Huff. She is about 4.5 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And we ran cross country together for a little bit whenever I was in the 5th grade and she was in the 8th or 9th grade. She's just been one of my great friends ever since then. And she's always been somebody that I've looked up to in church and just in life and the way that she carries herself. And then a more formal mentor would probably be Miss Heather Ray. She was my 7th grade English teacher, and I loved Miss Ray. I loved being in her class, but even after I left her class, she stayed in touch with me, and she's always made sure that I'm on the right track and to see if there's anything that she can do for me. And she always just keeps up with what I'm doing. And so she's been a really great influence in my life also.
All right, great. Myra, what about you?
I would say, which she hasn't been a mentor for very long, but she made a lasting impact when we first met. Her name is Miss Colby Lakis, and she is the advisor for Beta Alpha Psi, which is the accounting fraternity that I'm in at Auburn right now. And she has so many students. She is the advisor of all of Beta Alpha Psi, which consists of 150 accounting students. And she really just makes every one of us feel like we are special and we could come to her with any problem we have, whether it's regarding accounting, the major, or anything in general. I've gone to just talk with her on Zoom about classes and life in general, and she really just makes an effort to let you know that you are special to her, even though she does have so many students. And I met her freshman year, and we've still talked multiple times throughout my time at Auburn. So I'm just really blessed to have her, and the School of Accountancy is really blessed to have her at Auburn.
Yeah, I know Colby. I met her when we recruited up there several years ago, and you're right. She's a great resource to have. So that's great. Garrett, what about you?
I feel like I obviously, like everybody, have a lot of people that have influenced me, so it's kind of hard for me to pick. But recently, since I've been at Auburn, one name that I can think of is an English professor, Dr. Paula Backscheider. I had her a few semesters ago for an English literature class called Cultural Studies, and I really just built a relationship with her. I would visit her in her office hours outside of class, and we would talk about her career path that she had been through and her experience teaching at Auburn. And since I am going to be an English teacher and I may end up wanting to go beyond that and go teach at a college level, it's been really nice to get some insight from her. But really the main thing with her that stood out to me is just how much I could tell that she cared, not just about the students, but she knew that what she was teaching was very important. And she was really passionate about it. And that came through in the way that she approached her class and her students. And I really admired that from her.
That's great. All right. All three of you guys, all in college, obviously, but you're at different stages. I'm going to ask each of you to give me one piece of advice that you would give the incoming freshman class in the fall. They're graduating from high school now. They're getting ready to go to their colleges, whether they're Auburn, Alabama, Troy, UAB, or ones that I've seen, Coastal Alabama, or I've seen some folks going to Coastal here in Bruton. So what piece of advice would you give them, or what was maybe one piece of advice that you got that really helped you as you were entering this next phase of your life? Myra, I'll start with you, put you on the hot seat first.
The most helpful advice that I've received is to actually get to know your professors and go to their office hours. I know everybody hears that, and people are going to get tired of hearing it as they're transitioning into college, but it took me a while. I didn't start really getting to know my professors until my sophomore year, and it really does make a difference. I know this semester, I had a tax professor, and I love her so much, Dr. Carrie Inger, and she really made an effort to help me with whatever I needed. And she would give like extensive feedback on any assignment that I turned in, and went to her office hours, and I really got to know her. And we talked about Hamilton a lot because she really likes Hamilton.
Well, there you go. She's a good person. I can tell you that already. Garrett, what about you?
One of mine is definitely what Myra said about getting to know your professors. That's something that has made a really big impact on my time at Auburn. And I know people do hear it a lot. A lot of people tell you, but also at the same time, most people don't do that. So that's definitely something that I would recommend. But a different one I would say is another one that people probably hear all the time whenever they're getting ready to go off to school. But it's just to get involved. It doesn't really matter what it is, but all of my most meaningful experiences at Auburn have been through things that are outside of academics. I've been really involved in SGA campaigns, and I'm doing Camp War Eagle right now. And I was on the college education school council for SGA, and all of the connections and friends that I made through that are really meaningful to me and have really enriched my experience at Auburn. So definitely get involved in lots of different stuff. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't matter what it is, just something.
Yeah, that's great. Abigail?
Definitely those two are super important and something that I've learned from my freshman year. But the one thing that I would say would be good advice to incoming freshmen is to like really look for the opportunity to make relationships in every situation, even with your professors, going to their office hours, really getting to know them, because your professors want to meet you also. It's not just about you and like if you need your grade rounded up at the end, but they have those office hours to meet you. But also you can find friends in any situation. I can't tell you how many times I've just been like sitting on Sanford Lawn, just doing homework, and somebody's walked up to me and started talking to me, and we've become friends. Or just walking down the hall of my dorm and going in people's rooms and meeting them, because chances are people are wanting to find those friends also. So if you go up and you make an effort to make those friends in every situation.
Yeah, got to put yourself out there. And I will say one of the funniest texts I ever got from you was we saw it. Well, actually, it was a Snapchat or something. We saw a girl that we had never seen before. It was your first week at Auburn. So I think your mother sent a text and said, hey, who's a blonde girl in your Snap? And you said, oh, that's Diane. I met her at the post at the.
I met her in the mail.
Yeah, I met her in the mailroom, right? And she became one of your good friends. And so you absolutely have taken your own advice on that. So I think that's great. All right, a couple little fun things, and we'll let you guys go. All right, Myra and Abigail, this one's specifically for you because I know of your love for Hamilton. So I want your favorite Hamilton song, and then the character that you most think that you identify with.
Favorite song? I don't think this will be a surprise to anybody, but it is "Wait for It," because Leslie Odom Jr., Aaron Burr, is my favorite character, and I think I identify with him also. And that's because Aaron Burr is usually seen as the villain, and I really feel bad for him because he's just trying to do what's best for him, and he's really just trying to succeed, but he does do some bad things in there. He does wrong, but if you take time and you sympathize with Aaron Burr, you can see yourself in him. So he's my favorite.
Abigail, you and I have had this argument for years. I don't understand why he's your favorite character, but you are correct because you've never wavered that he is your guy. So I appreciate your consistency in that. All right, Myra, what about you?
All right, it's really hard to pick a favorite song, but if I had to go with one, it would be the Schuyler Sisters. And My favorite character kind of varies, but some days I'm really big on Alexander Hamilton. I really am a big fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda. I think he is just an amazing person for being able to compose all of that music and the whole play. Like, it's just amazing. But my real favorite character, I think, is Angelica. I really couldn't tell you why. I think if I were to ever be on Hamilton on Broadway, I definitely would audition for Angelica.
All right, you heard it here, folks. When Myra's on Broadway, she's going to look for as Angelica in Hamilton. All right, Garrett, I've got a little bit different one for you. I know that you appreciate Hamilton as well, but I don't think it's quite to the level of Myra and Abigail. So, but I do know over your past 3 years at Auburn being an English major, you have read, I just can't even wrap my mind around how many stories and books and things that you've had to read. So give me maybe your favorite literary character or one that you can identify with, and then maybe your favorite book or short story that you've read over the past 3 years.
Oh gosh. Okay. I'll start with my favorite book that I've read recently, just because I feel like that's a little bit of an easier one. But last semester in a class called Contemporary American Literature, I read this really good nonfiction book called The Lost. It's by Daniel Mendelsohn, and it's kind of about his journey to find out what happened to his family in the Holocaust. He lives in America and he travels and meets some of the last survivors of the Holocaust. And it was just a really cool and intriguing story. And I really enjoyed reading that. I guess as far as favorite character, there is this, I can't even remember what it's called. I read it in another American literature class, and he's basically a pirate. I think his name is Benito Cereno, but I always really liked that character and the way it was written. I think it was written by Herman Melville. That's kind of a broad, vague answer that doesn't really tell y'all very much, but that's all I can really remember.
Well, I'll take that. I mean, you've read countless stories and have countless characters floating around in your mind, so the fact you can recall one is impressive.
It does run together.
Yeah, understood.
Yes.
All right, last question, and I'll let you guys go. Okay, so when you guys are at Sky doing whatever it is you do on the weekends at Auburn, I want to know what's your go-to karaoke song you're singing by yourself and what your duet is. Let's see, who am I going to pick on first? Let's go with Garrett. He's got that look on his face. What do you got?
Well, first of all, I would never go on the karaoke stage by myself, ever.
Well,
that is too scary. I always have to go with somebody else.
But if you're forced, I mean, if I force you to go up there by yourself, this is theoretical, strictly theoretical.
Okay. I would probably go with Night Moves by Bob Seger.
Wow, that I was not expecting.
Why?
That's just, I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, and then if I am doing a duet, I would probably go Islands in the Stream, Dolly Parton, and Kenny Rogers.
Solid choice. That's my boy. All right, Myra, what about you?
All right, my solo would be Miami by Keith Whitley. And I'm going to do that next time. I really think. I don't even care if people get mad at me. And my duet would be Party for Two with Shania Twain and Billy Currington with Mary Madison Brown.
Oh, so you got your partner in crime. That's great. All right, very good. Abigail, what about you?
My solo song would definitely be When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars. Myra and Garrett have heard me karaoke that song countless times. And then my duet would be Best Love Song by T-Pain with Millie Hodge.
Okay. All right. All strong choices. I recognize about 50% of those that you just mentioned. So that shows the disconnect there in my music knowledge. But all right, guys, thank you so much. And look, listeners, I hope you can tell that I know these three very well, but I also know their friends. And so I can tell you without a doubt that our future is in good hands because these guys are great. They've got great heads on their shoulders. They know what they want. They've got dreams and aspirations and goals, and their buddies at Auburn do too. And so don't worry about the future. We're going to be good. But guys, thank you for joining me. It's been great. And if you don't listen to your own episode, not going to be happy. So go check it out.
All right. Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, for having us. I really enjoyed my time on the podcast.
Thanks for having us. I'll probably actually go listen to this one.
Very good. Can't ask for more than that. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. And as always, a big thank you to producer and editor Carrie Wolf. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Avizo Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avizogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.